my lovelies, my name is Lekka, and this is Austin, and today we're going to be teaching you guys how to build a badass Monarch deck in Yugioh Master Duels. By we, I mean Austin, because he knows much more about the current meta and everything of the game than I do, so I'm going to let him very clearly explain all of this away.
So we're currently in our decks. We're going to go to this one, the Emergent Monarchs. You can unlock this deck by going through one of the solo sections. For the Emergent Monarchs, you just have to go through the little dialogue section they do, the little story bits, and then once you complete it all, you unlock this deck. We're just going to be using it as a base, because most of the cards in here aren't insanely competitive. A couple of them are kind of helpful, but not remotely going to be what the finished product is going to be. So starting here, what I think we'll do is we're going to clear out most of this. So we're just going to completely eliminate this card, because it's not helpful.
Now, it makes sense. You're clicking to get rid of a lot of the just really crappy cards that you just happen to have in there. Mobius itself is not a bad card, but for the deck that we're trying to build, it doesn't hold weight, and you don't want to have extra fat in your deck more than the things you definitely want to have inside, because probability just is going to make it less likely for you to draw the cards that you do want to have in order to have a higher chance of winning the game. And so even though we're using this as like a base structure one, because we're clearing out almost all of it, if you are going to be getting a lot of Monarch cards, the best ones to get them are going to be the Elements Saber packs, because that's going to be where you get both the Element and the Monarch cards from that you can spend a lot of your gems on, and then use to get either cards to be able to dismantle them for the parts of the cards you do want if you weren't able to pull them, etc. So as you can see, Austin's basically destroyed the entire deck down to almost nothing, and then we're going to start building it from there. So if you started with the 40 base structure pack, delete all of it, have these 5, and then he's going to explain the rest from there.
Part of the reason why I wanted to use this as base is I want to recommend you get it, because these 5 cards will be pretty helpful. I'll bring this down to 2 actually. For at least in the current, so what you're usually going to see in the current meta, at least in what I expect in Master Duels, because everyone's just starting the beginning parts, you're going to see a lot of sort of cookie cutter beatdown style decks, and then extra decks are massive in this game. They're super important. So being able to have a deck that may not even be your primary, but especially when people start to pick up the game and get really good at it, you're going to see extra decks summoning a lot. The best part about Monarchs is they're really good at counteracting that. So you still basically get to man the field, you get to do removal, you get to do consistent card recycling, you get consistent economy, but you don't have to worry about getting destroyed by just how fast special summoning is in this goddamn game.
So it's basically anti-meta.
Exactly. That is exactly the role it plays. So what we're going to do here, we're going to go to related cards on our Dynasty of Monarchs. That way we have a list of what Monarch cards we have. And as we go through, we're going to be using this function a lot because I really like it for finding cards. But we're definitely going to want 3 of the Erebus the Underworld Monarch because he's great at removal. A lot of the Monarch spell trap cards activate in your graveyard, such as the primary draw engine, which is the Pantheism of the Monarchs, and also one of the better traps in it, the Prime Monarch, both activate in the graveyard as well as when you use them as regular spells and traps. So he's fantastic for getting the engine going. So we're definitely going to run him at 3. I have Caius in here because I personally like to run some of the 2400 ones. Not everyone does, but I think they're really good for spot removal, and because you can search them, it's like, oh, hey.
What is spot removal?
Spot removal is basically when there's a singular card that you just really want to get rid of, whether it's a spell, a trap, whatever it is, and Caius specifically can banish any card. And if you do decide to choose a Dark Monster, just an extra 1,000 damage, but just being able to banish one card is really helpful, especially because a lot of cards, like our own deck, activate in the graveyard. So if you don't put them there, they don't come back to bite you, especially if you don't know what they are. So we'll go ahead and do that.
We have 3 holographic ones. We didn't even have to craft any of the other ones.
No, we did not. So here we have Ehther the Heavenly Squire, which is the Squires pair with the Monarchs. There's each one fitting each one of the Monarchs. They match up like color scheme wise, attribute wise, but engine wise, they are the main part of what's going to be true for the deck. Ehther being the most effective one because
very, very, very good.
Ehther more or less generates another Squire from the deck. I don't know why that was just say Squire, but they special summon a monster that has the same stats as every Squire in the deck will have. And then those Squires usually get triggered by their summoning in some way. So this will be our primary engine for summoning the Mega Monarchs and also our regular Monarchs as well. And the best part about it is if it's in the graveyard, like I said, a lot of the cards in this deck activate in the graveyard as well, you can banish one of your Monarch spells, which you'll be dropping a lot using your Erebus in the first place. You can banish it in order to add one of the banished spell trap cards to your hand. So they'll be moving a lot. You'll be able to recover a lot of the cards you use. So worrying about not having access to your cards is not really going to be a problem. So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna put our goddamn shiny one in there at
We're
3.
always put in the holographic, and if you have a prismatic card, fucking stunt on them. Always use prismatic if you
Right.
have it.
Now, speaking of monarchs, there's also Ehther, which is sort of the this is our spam card. This is basically gonna be what's gonna bring out a lot of damage.
I like her.
So what happens is when you tribute summon her, like all the Mega Monarchs, even though it doesn't say Mega in the name, they can be tribute using a tribute summon monster. So when you can use Caius in place of a tribute, you can use an Erebus that you've already tribute summoned. But when it is tribute summoned, you can send 2 spell trap cards that are monarchs from your deck or hand to the graveyard, much like the ones activated in the grave. So that's fantastic for adding future resources. So we're going to go ahead and add 3 of her, but we need to craft one, which is going to be a big part of this process, is crafting some of the cards we need. But the best part about it is that she can also be summoned on your opponent's turn, and when she is tribute summoned, she special summons a monarch from your deck, which means that she can add one to the field for a bonus damage. Now, especially the monarch isn't amazing, but that bonus damage is always great. The best part about it, though, is at the end of the turn, that monarch returns to your hand. So the following turn, you can then tribute summon it to get its effect, which is fantastic. It's just overall a really good card, especially in this with how everything in this deck synergizes. It's super helpful. Go ahead and add 1. Add our little shiny one.
Shiny!
Then we're going to go ahead and use generate 1 because we have just enough points to make an additional one. We're going to generate. Now we have 3. This one is also shiny.
Ooh!
So go ahead and add that one. So now we have 2 shiny.
Nice.
Alright, so now we have 3 total, which is fantastic. And then there's going to be a lot of 3-ofs in this deck because you want your engines to be concise. You really want to see the same cards all the time. So very few cards in here are going to be run at 1. The only ones we're going to run at 1 are usually response cards. Like I added Dark Advance in here because I just like its responsibility. It's because what it does is during their main phase of battle phase, you can target one of your monarchs that's either one and add it to your hand. Then immediately after it, you can tribute summon it to the field. So that way, if you have a spot removal in the graveyard, like Caius, you can drop it during your opponent's turn if it's in the graveyard. I really like that. It's much better than the not the Prime Monarch, but it's much better than the Escalation of the Monarchs where you have to have it already set up and you have to have it in your hand, where this one is more of like a counter where they don't realize that it's going to happen because it's in your graveyard. So it can also be used when you have no cards in your hand, which I think is good in general. But I'm only running it 1 because I do not want to see it all the time. I just want to see it every once in a while as a disruption factor. There's a lot of removal in this deck, so disruption's not really going to be a problem. Now, since we have 3 of our primary monarchs here, what we're going to do is we're going to have to backtrack a little bit to go ahead and find our other squire because it's not here because, unfortunately, because of the way their wording is in their text, they're not all going to show up when you show related cards because they're not an archetype, which is cards that all share the same naming.
This is the put on. It's going to be on the background.
No worries. It's just
It's very annoying and editing.
we will wait.
Archetypes. When you're explaining it as well, because you're doing a really good job explaining it, because you explain it very in simple terms for people to understand, is it'll be like, well, because for somebody layman who just came to the game and is like, I want to do Monarch deck, but I don't fucking understand it, because you're helping explain it, because when you're just trying to read the cards, you're like, I don't know what the fuck that means.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to really explain, like you did to me, the spell cards of like, this one is super wordy, but basically this card brings out these 3 cards that we have, or this one brings out the monarchs, and this is what you need it to do.
Those cards are very detailed, so I will go down the line.
Right, because it'll be like, I don't know what this means.
Yeah.
Like for me, I didn't know what that meant, so explaining it to like a 2-year-old is the best way to do tutorials. So you can explain complicated shit in layman's term, you're a god.
Does not feel.
He doesn't. I'm sad he doesn't feel good.
Oh my. Notice I've been sneezing a lot, so I'm starting to worry.
I've been told by my vet, if your cats sneeze like more than like once in a while because they got their nose into something, then that's a sign that they're sick. So that's why when you were like, he's been sneezing a lot, I was like, oh shit, that means he's sick.
Well, I was like, there's no way that's fucking.
Thank God. I fucking hate that for audio. Okay, I'm sorry. You stopped on something archetypes.
Yeah, so archetypes are basically naming conventions that make it easier to find cards and also how they associate one another. Like you see here in this card, it says Monarch spell trap cards. That Monarch spell trap cards would be an archetype of spells and traps. So in this case, we want to find other Squire cards, because they are the other part of our engine here. So pull up Squire. And the other big one to look at will be this one, Yugioh the Underworld Squire. So the way that Yugioh functions is basically when it's normal special summon, you can, during your main phase, tribute summon a monster in addition to the normal summon you get, which you usually only get one. And if it's in your graveyard, you can banish this card and then target essentially a Squire, basically that 800 attack, 1000 defense, and special summon defense boost. Now, this locks you out of your extra deck, but for us, it doesn't matter. We're not even going to run one. But the reason why this is so powerful is because Yugioh can basically summon Yugioh from your deck when it's normal summoned on your turn, and then you can immediately normal summon a Monarch, any one you have, tributing either one or both of them. And then on the following turn, you can banish Yugioh from the graveyard, then special summon Yugioh back from the graveyard, and then it summons a new Yugioh from the deck, and you do the same thing again. So it becomes a fantastic resource. So for that reason,
it's Eidos, not Yugioh.
Oh well. So we're gonna go ahead and add 3 for that one as well, because it's primary engine in our
what's
deck.
What's his name, Austin?
Wanna fight? We can fight on camera.
I have milk. What you gonna do about it?
Leave it in the video. Now going back to our primary function of summoning monarchs, my recommendation is you don't want to run too many of the other smaller monarchs, the ones with 2,400 attack and 1,000 defense, because they're not insanely concise. I think Caius is probably one of the best, but I would recommend probably running Caius the Light Monarch, because you run a lot of cards that stay on the field. So you run continuous spells, continuous traps a lot of the time. You'll run a field spell as well. So when running out the monsters, I would add one of him as well, because you can either target 2 cards the opponent controls to destroy them, or 2 of your own, because whoever's cards get destroyed by its effect, that card's owner gets to draw a card for each one they lose. So you could destroy 2 of theirs, unfortunately giving them 2 cards to draw, but if you're trying to get rid of set spells and traps, or really, really difficult to deal with monsters that just have really high stats, because you're not really going to get over 800 ever. So you really want to be able to get rid of those monsters as efficiently as possible. And then if you just have like an excess of your continuous spells and traps, because we will run multiple copies of a couple, you can set them, destroy them with Kuras in order to get bonus draws, which is really good. At the end of the day, you always want to be able to draw more cards if you can. So overall, this is kind of very close to what I'd recommend minimum lineup being, in my own preference, and also because we're building this not for myself, we're building it for Lekka, and she's a really big visual person. We're going to add a couple of the other Mega Monarchs, so that way she can kind of choose what fits her style at the time. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go ahead and add Caius the Mega Monarch, because he banishes just any card as well, and he does the damage.
So he's another spot person.
Yes, and he also does the damage without it having to be a dark type, and it's always good to have an additional one. We will add 1 Mobius, which I removed earlier, so that way you have some spell and trap removal specifically. And I think we will add, we'll add Raya's the base Monarch, because he bounces.
Why the 2400, not the 2800? Because
you can search both of them, and they can be treated with 1. So they're much. So if you don't have the field presence to tribute 2 monsters, or if you don't have the additional fodder, basically, especially if you run through your squires really quickly, you can just pop them off by triggering one of your other monarchs just to remove something really fast.
Gotcha.
So that's what these will be for: is removing 2 spells and traps, removing bouncing card back to the top of the deck, which is better than destroying a lot of times, because like I said, it doesn't go to the graveyard. And this way you also can add ones with different names, which will be a requirement for one of the cards we add later. So they have to have different names than ones you play. So we want to have options. Options is always great. And all of them can allow these to become 1 tribute monsters if we decide to speed them up using their own effects or other cards that we have that will let us tribute. So with that in place, I think we'll go ahead and round out the monster list with 1 additional Mega Monarch, and we'll go ahead and do Ryza, because it's really good for disrupting graveyard. And if we tribute our regular Ryza for it, then we'll be able to get additional targets, which all of these do. If you tribute all the Mega Monarchs except for Heavenly and Underworld, that is, if you tribute using an attribute that's the same as them, they get bonus targets for their effects, which is fantastic.
And now you get to the most complicated part of the Monarch decks for constructing one, especially for new people like me, which are the spell and trap cards specifically made for the Monarch meta.
Yeah. So we'll be starting off with the field spell, Dominion of the True Monarchs. This is an ultra rare, so this is going to be one of the hardest ones to obtain. But you can craft it, you can get it through the Elemental Saber pack if you buy enough like we did. That's why we managed to get this nice, shiny, prismatic.
We got the prismatic from a pull because we're baller.
Yeah, so the things to keep in mind is that you cannot use this field spell if you have any cards in your extra deck. So if you're building a Monarch build that wants to have extra deck resources, you cannot run this card.
Why would you want to have a Monarch deck with extra decks?
Because extra decks have a lot of resources and options, and there are some versions of the build that will do that just because they're like, oh, I have 2 level 8s. I can use level 8 Xyz monsters and things like that. But I don't think it's ideal because part of the reason you run a Monarch deck is because your opponent's going to use the extra deck. And this card, and much of the other cards, will help you combat that very effectively. So what this one does, as long as you have no cards in the extra deck, and you're the only player that controls a tribute summon monster, which you normally will, all your monarchs will be tribute summoned 99% of the time. Your opponent cannot special summon monsters from their extra deck. So especially if you get that lucky 50% and you go first and you manage to search this out and play it, your opponent's strategy half the time is going to be decimated. It's going to hurt a lot. They're going to have to find some way to remove this card first. There's a lot of spell and trap card removal in the game, but the more you can slow down your opponent, the better. And you have so much recycling, this card's going to come back on the next turn. It's not going to stay in the graveyard. They're going to have to banish it. There are not many removal cards that banish that are mainstream because they're just not convenient to run. So it's definitely going to be very effective. So we're going to run 2 of this card. Now, I know I did talk it up quite a bit, but the problem with running more than 2 is it's a field spell. It's going to clog up our hand. It doesn't go anywhere if we can't play it. Sure, we can discard it with one of our other cards, but I definitely think for consistency-wise, it's so searchable. Running 2 is fine. That way you'll see it often enough that occasionally you open with it without searching it. You won't see 3 of them in your opening hand, which would suck, because that would mean more than half your resources are the same thing, and that's bad.
What are the 2 magic cards that you left in? Because you already talked about the trap card.
Yeah, so this is card advance. Basically what it does, unless you look at the top 5 cards of your deck and place them in any order, and with the draw cards we have in this deck, that's actually pretty strong, because then we can move stuff to the top deck that we need specific resources. But also, it lets you tribute summon a monster in addition to your normal summon set. So basically what that means is similar to our Squire up here that gives us an additional normal summon, this also does. So what that means is you can look at the top 5 cards of your deck, break them, play the draw card, which I'll go over in just a minute. Draw specifically out of the top 5 the 2 that you want, because you put them in that order. And then after that, you can then normal summon a Monarch you just added, which is fantastic. So especially in tribute summon heavy decks, this card's actually a lot stronger than people think, even though it's only a normal rare. But I think in this deck, it can be very helpful, especially because we're going the disruption option by having all these additional smaller monarchs, so it just ensures that we can get them out much more. So this primary engine will do a lot of work. Now, it's not always going to do that work, and we need to make sure we have additional options, because if you don't open an Ehther, you don't open Eidos, then you won't be able to generate the advantage you immediately want. We're going to add a card that will help that consistently a bit, but at the end of the day, options are good as long as they consistently generate the same thing, which is what this does. So now that we have our 2 field spells set, we'll go ahead and go into one of our big speed engine cards in this deck, which is the draw option in this deck, which is Pantheas and the Monarchs. The way this works is, if you have another Monarch spell trapped in your hand, which we'll be running several, and I mean several, the majority of the spells in this deck will have Monarch in the name.
Because they all theme together and synergize together.
Absolutely. So you can send one of them from your hand to the graveyard and draw 2 cards. That's fantastic. Now normally, draw cards that discard 1 and draw 2, you're like, okay, it's a give and take. I played a card, so I lost 1. I discarded 1, I lost 2, and I draw 2. So I just replaced 2 cards in my hand. But so many of the Monarch spell trap cards, as you will see, get triggered in the graveyard. They have an effect that activates there. So you're generating advantage for the future or even that same turn. So it's like discarding something that's guaranteed to benefit you by letting it hit the graveyard.
So it's a deck thinner.
Yeah, it's a deck thinner, and it also gives us even more options. And when combined with our card advance, we're now guaranteed that we can decide exactly which 2 cards we draw.
So if you get a Pantheism of the Monarch, what would you want to discard to synergize with it?
So you want to discard cards such as, and we will get to them, things like your Prime Monarchs, because you want them in the grave. They're much more beneficial to you in the graveyard. Things like your... where is it? Yeah, it's going to be usually the Prime Monarch is the biggest target, but if you have multiple copies of Domain, you have 1 up. If you are, say, running several copies of Return the Monarchs, it's not going to help you to have 1 on the field, because you can only use this effect once per turn and another in the hand, so you can discard your extra ones. So those ones activate in the grave, which is super helpful. And a lot of Monarch effects can also activate by banishing Monarch spell trap cards from your graveyard. So if you have backup copies, if you have too many extras, it's huge for that. But the primary targets you want to look for are cards like the Prime Monarch, which we will also be running at 3 because it's the best discard target for this deck. So running through the spells, as you can see, we only have 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over here and we're going to try and generate one. So unfortunately, we don't have the 30. So what we're going to do, click out of this. We're going to go to our sliders. Here lets us filter everything from card type to monster type, level rank. But there's a rarity, so we're going to go to the SR. Look at the SR cards we have that we got from packs. So let's have to click around for a bit. And we're going to more or less dismantle, because you can only dismantle cards you get from packs. So we're going to dismantle SRs that we don't want to use. Now, if you're one of those people who wants 3 of a kind,
of every card ever,
because you like having options, maybe you want to build that deck in the future, I recommend get the 3 of a kind, delete your force. Just delete all your force, because you can delete them in batches, which we'll probably do later. But we don't have many 3 of a kinds, and neither of us are a big fan of the Elemental Lord's whole system in general. So we're going to dismantle both of these for an extra 20. Oh, don't look at me. Love you too. So we'll dismantle both of these, which will get us to the 30. And now when I click on my Pantheism, I can generate a third one. Which, my favorite part of this game is how easy it is to generate cards. It's so easy. You just buy packs. The packs actually give out pretty consistent quality cards.
How much money have you spent on this game, Austin?
0.
How much did you spend to buy this game, Austin?
0.
Okay.
Free to play. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, you can pay to get advantage. Yes, you can, but like I was a big fan of Duel Links. It's really hard to get ahead in that game by grinding. You spend money.
That game was designed to be pay to win. This one is designed to be just play our game.
Yeah, especially if you play it now, you will get so many returns really fast. Farming gems is really easy. I love this dismantle and building card mechanic. It makes it really easy to get cards you want. Like being able to build this game for like we've only been on it for less than a day. That's amazing to me, considering like how quality these decks will run. Like if you go through the Monarch section, you will play a deck very similar to this one. It runs amazing. Like you will definitely feel like you're consistent and just killing it, and that's what we want to see. Go ahead and we're gonna hop back to our Monarch cards. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add what is our best search engine card, the Tenacity of the Monarchs. The way this card works is if you basically have any Monarch, because they all have either 2,800 attack or 2,400 attack. You have one in your hand, you show it to your opponent, which, like, I know some people are self-conscious, like, oh no, they're going to see my cards. Like, you're going to play the card. They're going to know you have it in a couple seconds. So you're going to reveal it, and it lets you add a Monarch spell track card to your hand, such as your Pantheon of the Monarchs. If you've already played it this turn, you can get your domain straight from your deck. So it's huge. Like, it's a fantastic search card. It's an absolute must at 3. You never want to run less than 3. Even if you get additional copies, just ditch it with your Pantheism. Like, if you really have everything you think you need. Now, running back down the list, we also have the Monarch Stormforth, which is sort of our elimination card. Now, what it does is it lets you, to keep it super simple, it lets you tribute one of your opponent's monsters for a tribute summon, which is awesome because you can tribute monsters that can't be destroyed by card effects. And it doesn't target, so even if they can't be targeted by card effects, you can still tribute them. The only downside, you can't special monsters from the extra deck. Again, doesn't matter. Does not affect us at all. We're only going to run one of, though, because it's one of those cards that if your opponent is not having a lot of advantage because you're winning the duel, it becomes a very not helpful card. So it's very good for disruption and, in general, removing cards that can't be taken out very easily. And you can activate it during your opponent's turn. Those situations where you can use Ehther's effect to tribute something on your opponent's turn, you can combo with this card to tribute your opponent's monster, which is pretty freaking hectic if you think about it. Go here, and we're going to go related cards because I want to make sure I get all the cards I want. So I think we're going to go ahead and go into the continuous spells. So we have March of the Monarchs. Previously, monster scroll cannot be destroyed by card effects. Also, the player can target with card effects. That's really good, but we don't want to see it all the time because it's continuous spell. It clogs up space.
So what does... Hold on. Read, like, pause for a second, and then louder, because you mumbled that one. Why are we picking this one?
So, basically, this here is March of the Monarchs. If you tribute summon monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. So, generic things like Leckakay, Dark Hole aren't going to destroy your monarchs if it's on the field. And also, they can't be targeted with card effects. So, cards that specifically say they need to target something don't affect them at all. And that is a lot of cards.
It's a lot of cards.
A lot of our own cards target. So, if you were even playing against other monarchs, they're not going to be able to target your monsters with their effects, which is huge. Now, we don't want to see it all the time because it's searchable, and if we really want it, we can get it. And so we have options in terms of protecting our monsters, but we don't want to see like 3 of those cards for the same turn. It's the same like the field spell. It offers protection and it slows down your opponent, but it doesn't generate advantage, so we don't want to see it constantly. So we can just decide to get it with our Tenacity of the Monarchs, or we can send it to the graveyard with one of our other monarchs and then get it back using one of our squires. Like, we don't want to just see it constantly. That's just not good for consistency. Speaking of consistency, the other continuous spell we will be running is Return of the Monarchs. It locks us out of our extra deck, again, like most of the cards do, which is fine. Doesn't matter. But when we tribute summon a monster, we can add a monster with either 20 or 400 attack and 1000 defense with a different name. So that means if we summon Caius, we got to search either one of the other monarchs, can't be Caius again, but that's why we only run of them. Or we can search out one of the Mega Monarchs that has the 2800 attack and 1000 defense. So this is why we run these sort of generic removals, because we can get them at almost any time, which is fantastic. Like, oh, they have several back row. I'm gonna go ahead and search out Reza. I'm gonna normal summon him and try and bounce something, or I'm gonna normal summon Mobius and try and get rid of their spell traps, force them to respond, and then we go into other things because we have so many resources. We're probably gonna get off at least 2 tribute summons most turns, and that's huge. That's fantastic. So they're not gonna be able to stop that. That's gonna be great. We'll be running 2 of this because it's basically how we get access to our monarchs. Everything else here lets us cycle through spells. This lets us cycle through monsters. And if we get 1 copy out, if it stays, we can discard the second copy with our Pantheism, which is really good. Now that more or less rounds out our lineup of spells and traps. Now other options you can choose, you can get Frost Blast of the Monarchs, which basically if you control a monarch, you can destroy a set card, and then you can banish it from the graveyard to target an additional set card and destroy it. As long as you banish another monarch card, that's a spell trap with it. We don't really need the removal. It's kind of like, it's like if they have a set card, so like your opening turn, this card is useless. It's not a quick play, so you can't respond to your opponent's turn. You're just hoping you have something to target.
It's not as good.
Yeah, it's not amazing. It's an option, especially if you feel like you want back row removal. This game doesn't currently have a side deck, from what I know of. So a side deck in common Yu-Gi-Oh is basically you have bonus cards that you can switch in when you play more than 1 game with someone. So if you play a match, so you play the best of 3. Doesn't seem to be a mechanic here, so we're not going to worry about it. You can also choose to Restoration the Monarch. I don't think it's that crazy. Like at most I would run it at 1 if at all, but the deck is pretty tight as it is. We want to make sure we get our ancient cards. We want to draw Pantheism. We want to draw Tenacity. We don't want to see a bunch of cards that aren't going to open us up for our first turn.
But you can have up to 60 cards. Why don't you want to have as many as you can?
Because, and this is a common mistake, people are like, oh, I have all these great cards. I want 3 of everything because I want to see everything. The problem is, that's not how probability works. If you have 60 cards and I want to see my Ehther right here, and I want to open up with Ehther because it starts my combos, now I have to fish out 3 cards out of 60. That's 1 in 20. That's not very good. Now if I have 40, that's much better. And then if I have other cards that can search out Ehther, that's even better. That allows me to get to that card more consistently. And we're actually going to be adding another spell card that's going to help us get Ehther more consistently. So in general, you don't want to have 60 cards, because then you're fighting for the cards you have 3 of to hopefully see them. The whole reason you have cards that search other cards is so you see them more often. Like we played Tenacity, so we can get Pantheism when we want. We can get to Domain early. We can get Return the Monarchs if we already have those set up. So we have better options in general. That's more or less why you run them. So why, if I'm running this card, which acts as an additional 3 of this one, why would I run an additional 20 cards that prevent me from drawing either? So in general, you want to keep decks to around. The most I would ever say is 43, unless you're building a deck that requires you to have an excess of cards, like a milling deck that just goes through your cards really fast. Usually 43 is the most you want to have. 40, if at all possible. Always go 40.
Makes sense.
You'll definitely consistently open what you want all the time.
So we need the rest of scrap cards.
Yep. So in this case, what we're going to do is this isn't really going to need to be an option for us. We're going to move on to the traps. We're going to run one of the Monarchs Erupt, which basically, if you have no cards in your extra deck, which we won't, and you control tribute to a monster, it will negate the effect of all monsters on the field while we control a tribute monster, except for tribute summoned monsters, which sounds complicated, but the way it boils down to, you have a Monarch out, if you tribute summon it, you play this card, as long as it's up, basically all your opponent's monster effects will be negated.
Except yours.
Except yours, essentially. Unless they tribute summon a monster, they're going to have no effects. We're only going to run 1, because 1, it's continuous trap, so it'll be there a while. And 2, it's not one of the things we want to see all the time. It just isn't. So we definitely just want it there for that disruption factor, because it's really good to be like, hey, your effects no longer work. But we do not want to see it like 3 in your opening hand. If I had 3 Pantheism in my opening hand, I'm happy. If I have 3 of this card, I'm sad. It's not good. As for the other traps, we'll be running one of the first Monarch just because of its ability to change its attribute. Like, it's very good. And at the end of the day, even if you don't have traps that disrupt your opponent, if you set them, that is a threat because they don't know what it is. They may think, oh, it's going to be one of the Monarchs Erupt. It could be Dark Advance, and I'm going to suddenly like get a tribute something in the middle of the battle phase, and I'm going to get something banished. So setting it there makes your opponent play slower, and they may waste something trying to destroy it. And if they don't, You can then summon it, discard a card, and you can guarantee one of your Mega Monarchs, like your Yugioh or your Caius, gets their double target effect off, that's awesome in general. Now, the Prime Monarch, which is going to be our primary discard option, will be a trap we run 3 of. And what it does is basically, if you decide to set it, which will not be...
do the holographic.
We'll do the hologram. So if you decide to set it, once per turn, you can use it to target 2 of the Monarch spell traps you have in your graveyard, because you'll be going through a lot of them. Shuffle into the deck, and you draw a card. Drawing cards is always great. Now that means you can recycle them back in the deck, you have a chance to draw them again, so you can restart this whole cycle all over. But the biggest part about it is if it's in your graveyard, which can be sent by Erebus, can be sent by Ehther, it can be sent by Pantheism. If it's in your graveyard, you can special summon it by banishing another Monarch spell trap. And it becomes basically a 2 tribute trap card. Actually, I believe it's a 1 tribute trap card that is just another fodder for your tribute summons, which is great. That's super awesome. So you can discard, and it doesn't have a restriction on the turn it gets sent to the graveyard like a lot of cards do. So you discard with Pantheism, special summon it. If you don't open with Ehther, you can then normal summon your Eidos, and then you can bring out one of your Mega Monarchs, especially one of your big bads that either have removal or this one sets up your later game. So that's huge. Now, as for other spells that are not Monarch based, these will be the cards that we're not going to be able to search. If this will, we'll do this and that. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a card that is a staple to any deck that has a level 4 or lower warrior in it. I misspelled it, apparently. Judge me. And that is
Oh, it's because you have it as a super rare. You're only looking for super rares.
Right. That's also why I didn't see that. We're going to go cancel that. Thank you. This is why Luck is here. Excellent.
Well, hold on. No. You still have it. You hit cancel instead of okay.
No. Thank you. All right.
Now you have access to everything.
All right. So this card specifically is really good. Just it adds a level 4 or lower warrior from your deck to your hand. Now,
are any of them warriors?
Yep. Our primary engine card, Eddie, is a warrior. So by adding this card to our deck, it's as if we're running 4 of a card that we only have 3 of. So it acts as an additional copy. So
shouldn't we have Dust Tornadoes too? To like fuck with the opponent and a Raigeki and stuff?
We're going to get to that. We're going to add Raigeki. We're going to add Monster Reborn because they're staples in any cards. This one's going to sit at about 42 just because it destroys most of its deck. It thins it out really well. But this one in particular gets this engine off that much more consistently. If you open with an Eddie, you're going to usually start a duel really well. And you want that. So having 4 of that is amazing. On to the other spells. We're going to go to Raigeki. Because this one, it's also a one-off. You can only have 1 in your deck, but it destroys all monsters opponent controls. Doesn't target, so it's really good at clearing fields. And then even in the heavy, like resource efficient decks today, if you can clear a field, you have a chance to do what's called swinging for game, which means you deal a bunch of damage and try and beat them before they can set it all up again. So especially with Ehther in the deck and giving you a chance to bring out 2 Monarchs at once, you can do about 5,000 to 8,000 damage in a turn if you play it right, because you can get off both tribute summons and then special summon one of your big Monarchs and just hit them as hard as possible. So Raigeki helps you do that, especially if there's problematic cards that can't be targeted. So now we're sitting about 40, and we're going to break my rule, unfortunately, because we also want one of the best cards in the game, Monster Reborn. Even in a deck like this, being able to bring a monster straight back from the graveyard is fantastic. Like, it's just, you can't beat it.
Reborn instead of Monster. It'll be much less.
Reborn. There we go. So we're going to put Monster Reborn in here. And now we're sitting about a 41, so actually a little shorter than I thought we'd be, which is good. You don't want to push it too high. Now, as for alternative options you can take... Oh, I misspelled things. Is be a commonality. I can't spell. So, alternative options you can take. When looking at the Squire cards, these 2 are the most efficient, without a doubt. They just are. However, there are additional options that you can take, because the reason they're worded this way is because there's also the Vassal cards, which kind of come in the same vein. They have the same stat line. They can be searched the same way. And what they do is they each have a different effect that gets them on the field or gets a tribute fodder on the field for you. They're usually really good for your linear Monarchs, for your level 6s. Now, these 3 are so efficient, I would recommend not even running them. But if you want to be technical, if you want to have
Or you don't have them.
Yeah, if you don't have them especially.
So now that Austin has built the Monarch deck and explained it to everybody, just like he's explained it to me, we're going to show you guys, because I'm a very visual learner. Like, I can hear things and try and understand it and explain it, but I am much better having seen things as well. So we're going to do 2 ranked duel games along with the deck that we just built, which is the Monarch Madness! S, which is the very first one here. And he's gonna walk through like, okay, if we get this hand, you're gonna want to do this, etc. And go from there. Lord of Fungus is gonna be our first opponent today. So we have no monsters. What are we gonna do?
Going to do is panic.
No.
So this is a tough opening. We do get our Ehther. Oh, well, never mind. And that is how you play Monarch. Wait for them to rage quit when they're ready.
And we went up 5.5 grades from doing nothing, and we're black tier 5. Woohoo!
I mean, maybe he saw the deck name and he saw I had no extra decks, so he got scared. Alright, this is great. Alright, they made us go first. That's fine by me. Gonna go ahead and play this. This here will let us search out our pantheism by letting them see we have Caius. And maybe they'll rage quit because they're scared.
Okay, but for realsies, what are we doing?
We're gonna add pantheism.
Okay.
This drawing card is always good. And because it'll let us add another monarch card after. I'm gonna do this. I forgot to do card. Oh no. That would have been smart card, but it's fine. Being smart for losers.
No, that's different. So why can't we do card events now?
We can, but if I had done it before we did pantheism, we would have got to pick what we got.
Oh, well.
So what I'm thinking here is if we do Erebus, I can reduce the number of cards they have in their hand, which is good. So they'll start with less. They'll start with the same as me. So we're going to do that. I'm going to summon Yugioh. Do this effect. Bring out Eidos. This is going to be a very common playline. You're going to do it a lot. Eidos lets us normal summon Erebus for free. We're going to do that.
Because now we have suddenly 2 monsters on the field and the ability to extra summon, sexy animation, bam! And now we have 2800 on the field first turn.
And now we're going to... hate it when it does. Input is incorrect. Did the same thing it did to me as it did to you. So what we're going to do is, because it's dumb, we're going to shuffle a card. And the card, 2 cards from our deck. Okay, it's doing this correctly. That's what I thought. Hold up, sir.
Okay, so what are we
Hold up.
doing?
We're going to send 2 of our Monarch spell trap cards from our deck to the graveyard.
Okay.
I really want to see Pantheism again. Just leave it there. No, actually, I will send Pantheism because I can use it next turn. Guarantee I get 1 card. I'm going to send these 2. Now, one of the cards in their hand gets shuffled into the deck. They now have 1 less card. That's amazing. Now we're going to go ahead and activate one of our Pantheisms. And we're going to see if they give us Dominion or not. No, I don't need this yet. So what we're going to do, we're going to pick 2 Dominions. And we're going to pick the Monarchs are up. So either way, they have to either choose to start without their extra deck or without their monster effects. Let's see what they do.
Why don't you activate the trap card and then use it to summon one of these next turn?
Because I want to wait, because if I put it on the field now, that gives them a chance to eliminate it.
Ah,
So-
I see. So you want to wait until...
Yeah, and I
That's
don't want
fine.
to start popping things yet. I want to save it for, and I can also use it
Because you
next
can't
turn.
attack first turn anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and set Monarchs are up. So they know it's there, and then they trade. Double check, make sure I know when to use it. I'll use that next turn. Do Eddie again. And we're just going to hang out. So in reality, we have 2 card investment. They lost 1 card, and we have a disruption on the field, which is good. Obviously, I would have loved to get Dominion down, but my playline wasn't the best. So it'll be fine. Now let's find out what the heck they're playing. Their little rabbit.
Wait, and cut to the part where they actually do something.
Oh, they set a card. Good enough. Does spell trap. Fine by me. Okay.
Ooh!
The structure of this is going to be interesting.
No, you need to do card advance.
I know.
Oh, okay.
I'm double checking my resources here. It's going to manage it. So I can add a Pantheism to my hand. So I'm going to do that. Actually, oh, I can't do that yet. Interesting. 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 So, we're going to do. Going to probably do Prime Monarch first. So banish another spell trap card. So I'll do that. Activate. We're going to banish First Monarch, because it doesn't do anything in the graveyard. No, because this will negate my own cards. I dislike that. And we're going to summon this. What this will do is it'll let me destroy both the set cards. Now, they will get to draw 2 cards, but I'm going to push for game this turn. So I want to make sure I eliminate all the chances that they disrupt either my plays or throw something in the battle phase and just completely wreck me. So those are both gone. Those were both bait, apparently, because one of them was a stamping destruction, which there's no reason to set it. So that's a mistake on their part. We got to draw 2 cards. They also set a Megamorph, which is weird. This person's unfortunately going to have some terrible luck now. So what we're going to do, we're going to banish the Eidos, which is, this is going to be the common play line turn 2 when it's in the graveyard, which you're going to banish it. And this is where card advance actually makes this deck amazing, is we're going to go ahead and bring out our Eddie again. Eddie then triggers, summoning yet another Eidos from the deck. Which then allows us to then normal summon again, which is fantastic. But in this case, if we had another Monarch, I could drop card advance and then normal summon it and just increase the amount of advantage we have. So in order to sort of extend that play line, I'm going to use Pantheism again. So I banish this, like the one I sent last turn. I'm going to go ahead and pick 3 more cards to add. I'm going to go ahead and pick 2 Tenacity. Actually, I think I still have all 3. I will. Nope, I do not. So the third one I'm going to pick is the Monarch Stormforth. The reason is if they give me the 2 Tenacity, I get to get a spell I want. If they don't, they lose their monster and they guarantee they lose them. Alright. Now, there are a lot of ways to go about this. Now, I can normal summon Caius because of Eidos and just guarantee I win the game. But I want to go ahead and make sure I'm set if they have a hand trap that lets them survive or if this monster has some weird effect after I remove it. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my Dominion, which is why I put the Stormforth there, so they would have to give me Tenacity. Because they're not going to give me Dominion if they
And it's the prismatic one!
Yep. So we're going to activate Dominion. Now, no extra deck. So even if my playline does not win us the game this turn, which it should, we are guaranteed there's no extra deck, and we have this here. If they activate the monster effects, I shut it down. This is pretty much kind of a lockout. Now, the only way they can get around this is spell and trap removal, which is great. Like, if you have to waste spell and trap removal to play the game, cool. Because most play decks, like my own, run heavy engines, so they're not going to remove things super often. So it's going to usually benefit us. So we're going to go ahead and tribute either of our squires here. Some Caius.
Ooh, pretty.
And then Caius' effect will then trigger, and I will banish their face down card. And
Why haven't you played the trap card?
because it'll negate effects of monsters I special summon.
Oh.
It's there for when they decide to start playing. They
Ah.
haven't decided to start playing, so I've been in a good place.
Gotcha.
Looks like they were running some type of blue eyes deck, so by banishing this, it was better for me because it doesn't trigger, so they don't get a blue eyes to hand. So in this case, unless they have a hand trap, they're in a very, very bad situation.
Because we can also use the reinforcements to summon another monster just for the hell of it.
Mm-hmm. We're going to go ahead and use reinforcements. We're going to go ahead and just add our other Edia for the following turn. And now I have an Edia, I have a card advance, and I'm overall just in a really good situation. So, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to go to the battle phase, and we're going to see if they have any hand traps. Just going to hit them real hard.
Why didn't we use card advance?
Because it allows us to do an additional tribute summon. So if we had another Monarch, then this would be very bad.
Gotcha.
But right now, they're going to be very low life points. I got rid of both of their back row. I got rid of their only really floating card, which is great. So they're sitting at a cool 2800 because Raz cannot attack the turn activating effect. So now we're just chilling. We have Dominion up, no extra deck. We have Monarchs Erupt, so if they start using monster effects, I will negate them. I have an Eddie in place if I draw a Monarch, so even if I do Erupt, I can still have Tribute Fodder. And then if they don't make me play Erupt, then I can use Eddie again. I can use card advance to drop multiple Monarchs. It's all sitting pretty. Like you.
Oh. I think they're gonna surrender.
I think they're for Yep. There it is. And normally that's how that should go. The goal of this deck is stay beefy on the front line and then lock them out of the things they want to do.
And now we're gonna be going up against Chung.
They still have a bunny.
Yep, and the opponent's gonna decide whether we go first or second, and they're probably gonna go second because most everybody wants to go first. Oh, we're going first. Okay, that kind of scares me because usually decks that want to go second are ones that want to go into the attacking phase, and that's not good. All right, this is really nice though for a first hand because we're able to put down Ehther for our setup here. So we're gonna set her down. We're gonna want to use her ability so that we can get Eidos out of the deck. Put him here as well, so that way we just have two things that they could choose to attack or do whatever they want with. Tenacity is gonna be nice, but we can't use it yet because we don't have any of our major Monarch cards. And Raigeki, obviously, we don't want to use right now, and I don't want to put that on the field for them to destroy when we don't have any of our other better Monarch cards. So for now, I'm just going to put down two so they can't just get rid of one and wipe through us. And end the turn, and then see what they want to do from here.
First turn Exodia.
First turn Exodia would suck.
Oh.
What the fuck? Apprentice Illusion? Oh my god. You can special summon this card by discarding one card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Dark Magician from your deck to your hand. Oh god. During damage calculation, if other Dark Spellcaster monsters battle an opponent's monster, you can send this card to the graveyard. Okay. Alright. Go ahead, attack me. Do 1200 damage. This is fine. Oh!
They're more worried about the bonus tribute summon.
That's fair. Understandable. So they're playing a Spellcaster deck.
They're playing a Dark Magician.
Yep, Dark Magician, which is great. Card advance! Very cool. That's nice. Because you're going to get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and then place them in the order, and then you can tribute summon an additional one. Unfortunately, I don't have any of the cards I need to be able to search, so this actually really fucking sucks.
However, you can play it in the next 5 draws.
Yeah, I can set up the next 5, so I mean, it's better than nothing at this point.
Yeah.
So I'll be able to do card advance unless they want to counter that with something. Take a lozenge. Because it's hard for me to talk with your coughs. I love you, and I know you can't help it. But it's hard.
It stopped you from it. That's a terrible trap. Okay, cool. Go.
Select the cards that you wish to return to the deck in the order of your choice. This one first, 100%. And then, probably this second, just in case. Dark Advance, third. Fourth, fifth. We'll go on in from there. Alright, and then I will go ahead and set this guy face down. Let's see. If this one goes into the graveyard, what can happen here?
Basically, if one of their other spellcasters attacks, they can send it to the graveyard to give that monster another 2,000 attack.
Gotcha. So I'll just Raigeki it.
Alright.
To get rid of it, because I dislike it.
Dislike?
Much dislike. And then I'm going to play my field card as well. And I'm going to then go and I'm going to battle. And I'm going to do... fucking...
Oh, they played their trap, so you can't attack them.
Oh, that's right. And then end.
You're like, I wanted to.
I know, I was like, I want to do 800 damage, damn it! That's fine, though. I got rid of the special one, and now we just gotta wait for them to stand by, main phase it out, and then go from there. We know that we're gonna get Erebus next turn, so I'm not worried at all. I put this down to scare them, so that if they put something in, it'll hopefully tempt them to attack my one that's down here. Oh! Turn change! Well, that's sexy as hell. Let's fucking go!
So you can tenacity.
Alright, and so now I can go ahead and tenacity. Fucking hell yeah. Alright. Show you this shit, which I'm gonna be playing anyway. And then select the card from your deck to add to your hand.
In this case, I'd probably choose either... You can't activate Pantheism because you don't have anything.
Send one... Yeah, because I don't have anything in the hand, so that wouldn't be the best one to pick.
Scroll all the way to the left.
Let's see.
You could do, I think, doing 2 returns and March would probably be good.
Let's see, because return, add from one card from your deck. Okay.
So if you summon a Monarch, you get that.
Yep, there we go. That's good. We'll go ahead and put that one down. Boop.
And then you can summon
To be able to have that one as a continue, and then summon. Yep. Alright, go ahead and get rid of that. Go ahead and get rid of that. And shaboom, shabop, shabing. Look at that sexy animation! Whoop-ah! And then add from your deck to your hand one monster with 2400, 2800, or don't activate this effect. Definitely that one! With a different name as the other thing. Perfect. Activate Erebus. Yes.
Then you can send a Pantheism.
Resolve! Alright, select the card to send to the graveyard. I can't do both at the same time. Dislike. Alright, we'll do that one. Shuffle one card from your opponent's hand into the deck? Sure! Less cards for them to choose from? Amazing. Select the card that you want to add to your deck. Obviously, we're going to bring in Niceness with Ehther. And then I'm going to go ahead and activate that. So we're going to go ahead and bring in this one. Select the card to be banished. We'll get rid of that one, because why not?
And then you can also use your widows to summon back your Ephra, and then you can summon your Monarch.
Yep. We're gonna bring that one on in. Shabam. Boom shakalaka. Put that one in there. Do you want to activate the effect? Sure! Why not? Let's get it on in here. Boom. Go on in. Look at our field just covered with monsters, which you absolutely love. And this one here is if you send one card from your hand to the graveyard, you draw 2 cards. When this one's in your... you can banish it. We don't need to do that effect. Tribute 1, yes. Select the monster to tribute. No?
Go back. You don't want to tribute your... because remember, that one doesn't count as 2.
Which one is the one that counts as 2? This one?
The black one, which you didn't play.
Oh.
Yeah, it's fine. You don't have it. So you just tribute to squares.
Oh, so I'll just do the 2 squires instead.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, there we go. And play this one down here. Shabam, motherfucker! What's this one do? His effect is that...
summon a Monarch straight from your deck.
Oh, summons a Monarch from my deck to the field?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. Active effect of Ehther? Yes.
You get to add one in your banishment.
Nice. We'll get that one back.
It all rolls together real
Nice.
nice.
Resolve! Alright, so I get Tenacity back in, we get Ehther back in. Select the card to be sent to the graveyard, this one. Select the card to send to the graveyard.
A Prime Monarch.
Yep, Prime Monarch. So that'll be better for bringing you out for summoning, and then select the monster that we want to summon. I don't like that he has a trap card, so I'm going to pick Mobius. Because I want to get rid of it.
Alright, attack it out.
Alright, and yeah. Let's go ahead and attack this shit. Alright, let's go ahead and move to the battle phase. Come here, you! Shabam! Shabam!
Well,
Shabam!
good night, sweet moon.
Boom! Dead! Alright.
Well, so much for Dark Magician.
Yeah, fuck your Dark Magician. I got Monarchs! And there we go. So that's going to be the video for today on how to build a good Monarch deck to be able to go through the Yu-Gi-Oh series. If you guys have any questions or your explanations or opinions on things that you like that would make the deck better, how easy it was to use, etc., then leave them down in the comments down below. If this helped you out, make sure that you like the video and subscribe, because subscribing on YouTube is totally free and it helps out the channel. And if you like these Master Duel videos, then we're going to be uploading a lot more of them, because Austin and I really, really like Yu-Gi-Oh! So this is going to be something that's a main staple here on the LeckaPlay channel. If you want to catch us on Twitch playing as well and going through ranked and whatnot with the community, find us on Twitch. Link is going to be in the description down below. It's Leckakay TTV, just like it says here on the player card that we've been doing for forever. But without taking up any more of y'all's time, we'll go ahead and let you beautiful people go. Goodbye, my lovelies!